Welcome to Marshall Day here at my house / workshop. We've got up top a Seriatone 2204, which is no longer pure Seriatone 2204. I'll give the details on this when we get to this amp. Here we have a 1980 2204, which while it is essentially still a 2204 with a little bit more gain, which I'll talk about, I did redo the grounds quite a bit and some heater tricks. I'll discuss that when we get more in depth with this one. And here we have a mid-80s 2210, the split channel with reverb. We're going to start with that. It is my least favorite of the three, and it is the one that got extensive. While it has had extensive work, it is not as quiet as it could be. It has a lot of kind of crappy old tubes in it, but they're still working. But this is as far as this servicing is going to go cost-wise. So it's stopping here. So let's hear the clean first. There's a buzz in the background. Part of that is the tubes. Part of that is some of the stuff in the switching circuitry in this amp, which is really not ideal. And the reverb in this is either very, very weak, or if you turn the reverb up enough to hear it, you get hum because of the placement of the tank next to the transformer. So I'm just going to show the reverb very briefly. So there's the reverb that you can hear, but there's also that buzz when the reverb is turned up. You turn the reverb down enough that you don't get that buzz, or at least it's not as prominent, and the reverb's weak. That's about as good as it gets. More than that, and it gets buzzy. We're going to turn it off for the rest of this. It's got gain, treble, bass, and then presence. Those are the controls, and it's a pretty good clean sound. It's not all that clean. When you push it. But if you back it off and you turn the treble and bass up so the mids stay a little lower in comparison, you can get some pretty nice big Fenderish sounds. And all that buzzing I was talking about is well in the background compared to what you're playing. If you turn the master down, and I've got it at noon here, it's even less apparent. So I had it at noon. If I turn the master down to just above 9 o'clock, now, the master volume in this is not as effective as it is on other amplifiers that Marshall's made, because it is affecting both channels, but it's also part of the channel mixing circuit. And there are an awful lot of compromises in this amp, such that there's always a little bit of bleed between the channels. Is that fixable? Yes, that requires quite a bit of redesigning. That's usually outside the scope of whatever someone with one of these wants to spend. So these particular amps are very much a compromise in design to try to give a Marshall-esque dirty sound and they wouldn't say Fender in the marketing, but a Fender-esque clean sound, for top 40 and cover bands and stuff like that. And I guess for the time, it's fairly successful. Personally, I think they got better at it with the JCM 900s, which also used solid state clipping. And even the Silver Jubilee 2550, 2525 amps. And, it's hard to keep up with everything that's out there now, but some of the DSL 40s, I think, are better suited for the role this amp was designed for, though this amp was better built than most of the modern ones. But aside from the DSLs and TSLs that had the drifting bias boards, the newer ones are pretty good amps if you need to cover a lot of bases but don't want to get into modeling. Let's go to the dirty channel on this thing. Now that popping is a relic of how they do the channel switching. But once you change after a few times, it goes away. It builds up if you don't do it for a while. But if you're doing it midway through the songs, it's not going to happen. It just if it sits for a while on one. Like I said, it's a lot of compromises. Let's see what this is sounding like. On this channel, you've got gain, volume, treble, middle bass. I've got those at noon. Now the gain on this is not tube drive, really. It's all diode clipping. And then the volume after it is right immediately after it in the circuit. It's a very odd thing. It sounds very much like 1986. And again, to get it a little bit louder than the clean is tricky. Here's the clean. And if I were to do some mid scooping on this thing and turn the treble up a little bit, bass a little bit, presence up quite a bit. Imagine this with some chorus and delay. Those are all very usable sounds, which we've heard a lot on records. I find that the overdrive really starts about 1 o'clock, and you have to have the master up quite a bit to get it, because it's just doing a diode thing. Otherwise, it's just a big, loud, clean. I don't personally find it very good for, say, blues or blues rock, but I'm sure there are people out there proving me wrong every night. And again, the built-in reverb adds all that noise, and it's kind of washy. I think if you need a bunch of reverb on your overdrive, this is the wrong amp for that, or don't use the reverb tank, use the effects loop. Anyway, that's the 2210. I'm going to tune my guitars real quick, and then we're going to switch over to this 80 JMP 2204. Okay, back to the low gain channel of the 2204 with the Strat. I should mention that all three amps are going to be heard through a WGS Veteran 30, mic'd with an SM57. You can't see it on the camera here, but it's same setup as usual, only this time I'm micing the Vet 30, which is very similar to a Vintage 30 that a lot of people will know as a reference. So I've got treble middle bass at noon here. Presence about 10 o'clock. master about 2 o'clock, preamp gain about noon. Now on a stock 2204, this would be very wimpy sounding, and I'd really have to turn that preamp up to like 8 or 9 to really get a loud clean. This amp has been modified for a little bit more gain, not a raging 80s metal monster, just a little more usable gain throughout the range. So here's the clean strat. So even there you get a little bit of oomph if you hit it right. If I turn it down, it'll clean up a lot. But it's not the wannabe Fender kind of cleans of some of the later Marshalls. It's still very much in the plexi mode of things. If I turn that up, so as you can hear, there's a lot more gain than a stock 2204 clean channel would have, and including you will notice that as you turn the master down, the amp does clean up. That's a weakness of all the 2204s with the pre-phase inverter master volume. That's less of an apparent issue on the high gain input because there's a lot more preamp gain that offsets it. You don't miss the breakup that you're not getting from the phase inverter. But on the low gain, even with the increased gain overall, you really do miss that phase inverter output section breakup that it adds. This is not a lot of modifications as far as getting the gain up like this. This is a lot of hard work to get the gain up without the noise coming up. As you can see in the previous videos on this amp, I redid the ground scheme entirely. It's got all new filter caps. The bus wire is gone. The heaters are referenced to a newly created DC elevated node. A lot of science behind this. But you know, the end result, I think, is the amp Marshall should have sold you, because instead of the anemic clean channel of the 2204, 2203, this gets into some plexi range, but still has all the nice sparkling cleans as well. Let's go to the high gain stuff. You'll notice I've been using the Strat for the clean stuff and the Les Paul for the heavier stuff. There's no law that says you have to do that, of course. And I've certainly played many a Strat to a high gain Marshall. That feedback is because I'm standing like 3-4 feet from the speakers. If I go back another 4 or 5 feet, like I would actually be on stage with a big 50-watt Marshall, that's not a real problem. Now, this amp, while I modded it for higher gain, does have the bright cap per the owner's request that a lot of guys find too bright. So if you find this too bright, you're not wrong. If you love this, you're not wrong. This is a higher gain version of the stock 2204, which certainly has been known to be described as very bright. But if you've played a lot of 2204s, notice that I have the gain at about 10 o'clock. That's where a stock 2204 pretty much maxes out. And that said, one of the weaknesses of keeping the bright cap in place is that the stock amp on 10, to get the same level of gain, does not have that brightness here because that bright cap is out of the circuit as you turn it up, which you will hear as I turn this up. But this goes quite a bit beyond the stock, and it does smooth out as you turn it up to a pretty good extent. And again, that squeals because I'm physically close to the speakers with unpotted pickups. If I were really trying to do the Van Halen thing, I would have a much hotter, heavily potted pickup. But you know, for fun, let's turn this all the way up real quick. And as far as the preamp gain, my neighbors would not appreciate if I turn the master up all the way right now, though I have confirmed this amp will not squeal or oscillate with everything dimed. This amp does ridiculous over the top, and it does it with some balls and authority, and I'm really happy with it. And someone who really plays those genres and who's not rusty will get a lot of mileage out of that. So that is a tweaked 1980 2204. Now let's go to this tweaked Seriatone, which started off as a stock 2204 copy, with one little exception, which I'll discuss. All right, as this amp came in, it was pretty much a stock 2204 build, with the exception that they omitted the bright cap on the volume pot, which is a mod most people prefer on a 2204. This one's got it, this one does not. I did many of the same mods to this one as I did to this, but then I went a little bit farther on this, because this one I wanted to be totally reversible. It was 1980. This one, since it was a brand new Seriatone built for, bought for this purpose, I had a freer hand. So again, I took out the bus wire. I redid the grounding scheme quite a bit. I gave all three first stages more gain. I am going to replace the volume gain pot here for the preamp with a push-pull, which will give a bright cap as desired, but not the 1,000 picofarad that the stock had. I'm gonna go with like a 250 or 220 or 270 picofarad. Because on the clean channel, the low gain input, at the lower volume settings, it can be a little bit dark. And if it had that bright cap there, it'd be a little more fendery. If you turn the preamp up, it gets brighter because of the nature of volume pots. And that would not be dramatically different if the bright cap were engaged. And then as you turn it up beyond that, you get into the same kind of dirty range that this does, with the same issue with, as you turn the master down, the output section cleans up. And as you can hear, it has a little more oomph than this one does. Let me go to the dirty stuff now. Okay, let's start with the volume just barely on and the master all the way. So this is the first sound this channel makes. We're at 9 o'clock here. So where this one is at 10, this one is at about 7, 2:30. We go all the way up on this thing. That's this unpotted guitar, not that level of gain. Let me turn the master down a little bit. That's not the amp oscillating, that's just this pickup saying, I can't do this. And again, I don't have my guitars set up for metal playing. I'm not a hard rock guitarist. I know how the sounds are made. And, if Lane Staley, rest in peace, sorry. If Jerry Cantrell were here with one of his guitars with his pickups, he could plug into either one of these and do the entire Dirt record. And that was the goal on this one in particular, talking to the client. But at the same time, go in the studio, I forgot how that went, but the amp was capable of it, even if I'm not. So pretty much from really pretty cleans and Allman Brothers stuff all the way up to face melting stuff, this amp does it with a realistically good noise floor. There's always going to be white noise. That's just unavoidable unless you just filter the hell out of everything. But it's really, in the heat of playing, it's so far behind what you're doing. And if I had a really heavily potted 12K, 14K output bridge humbucker, a lot of the squeal issues I was having just now would be gone, and you get that more saturated sound. I'd said Jerry Cantrell before. Joe Satriani would also be very happy with this. So I am not either of those guys, but I'm going to stop here because it gets the point across, I think, and I'm real pleased with these two. And this one is satisfactory.